What do they call that?
Yeah,
Person who
and
hands the
then,
door.
of course,
Sergeant at arms.
Oh,
Sergeant at arms, yeah.
Depending,
Say the
there
door.
are some one single floor.
yeah, that's
Doors
the,
closed, sir.
Okay.
And they're less expensive.
yeah.
Which
I
is
would like-
something that we like.
And
We
she
like.
was from Massachusetts, which is so high, so I think.
Oh, this.
I
is-
would like
let's
to
see
call
what it
this
is.
meeting to order.
It's Deborah.
Deborah's in Cuba
Oh, Deborah's in Cuba. Oh, I thought you knew.
and Gina's gonna be a little late, right?
Okay.
5:15, she said.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll start with roll call. I have Micah Corsi, chair.
Paul Stern, Vice Chair.
Martina Wharton, committee member.
Dorothy DeVal, at Human Services.
Will Vigo, committee member.
Jennifer Kaufman, Director of Planning and Development.
Sheila Andrews, member.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I see David Rhodes has joined us.
Oh, yeah.
Are you able to hear us, David? You're on mute, I believe. There he is.
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent, we can hear you. Great, thank you for joining us. So next order of business is opportunity for public comment, and first on our list is Mr. Rhodes. So, David?
Oh, wait, did you approve the minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Minutes.
did not approve the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to review minutes?
Yes.
I did. I move they be approved.
Second.
Any, no corrections? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to opportunity for public comment. And first on our list is Mr. Rhodes. David, you want to join us?
Oh, there we are. Okay. I got in late last time, and as a result, I sent a memo which was linked in the agenda.
Yes,
Has everyone had a chance to look at that memo?
yes.
Yes.
That pretty much sums it up. I have serious concerns that I voiced in other town meetings about this so-called, I think it's a misnomer, Desegregate Connecticut movement. And I just want to make sure that that voice is heard. I've talked to a lot of other folks in town who share the same sentiment. And I guess there's a question, and maybe somebody here knows, have we formally affiliated with these folks, or are they just using the Town of Mansfield logo to garner support from other people?
Where did you see them using the town logo, David? Where is it on?
On slide 6 of the slide set that was distributed in the PZC meeting, one of the
I've seen.
PZC members
Oh.
went to the training.
Oh, right,
It's part of the training thing.
yes. We are not affiliated with them, that I am aware of, unless the council is.
Yeah, we actually show up a couple of different places, and to the extent that I disagree with it, I'm not sure that this should count as training for us and the members of the town officials. But anyway, if you've read the memo, you know where I stand, and I just wanted some clarity on whether we have formally affiliated with this outfit or not.
You might,
So-
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Sheila.
I was just gonna say, David, you might want to ask the council. I mean, if you know, the Affordable Housing Committee is an advisory committee. We don't make policy or affiliate with anybody because we don't have that kind of power. So
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know anything about it, so you might want to ask the town council.
Well, I'd like to comment. I know about Desegregate Connecticut. It's a very active nonprofit that's very active at the state legislature level, advocating for what they call transit-oriented
Right.
housing. And I think the founder is a woman named Sarah Broden, who's the wife of Luke Broden, former mayor of Hartford. And they're well connected, and I think they have we are not affiliated with them in any way, but there are a number of concepts that they advocate that I think make some sense for Mansfield and other towns, including the notion that if you're going to develop property, it ought to be around transit availability for people who, you know, don't have cars or don't want to spend a lot of time driving around. That being said, when I read your memo to us, what I take from it is that you are really opposed to high density development in general, and that's one of the things that they advocate for. And I don't know that is really on our agenda. Our concern is about what housing that's developed, is that housing that's developed include an affordable component. If they're going to build it, we don't have any control over whether they build it, but if they're going to build it, we want to make sure that there's a component in there that gives opportunities to people of, you know, elderly people and single moms and all those people that typically can't afford to live in our town. But what I would recommend is if you have a complaint about the density per acre in Mansfield, that you address to the PZC, because they're the ones that really pull the strings in that department. They write the code.
Right.
They make the judgments on the individual, you know, projects that come forward. And I think they'd like to hear this, frankly.
I'm aware of PZC's involvement with this, and I will take your advice to speak up to the town council as well. I appreciate your perspective that it's really the affordability, and I agree. My concern is that we have seen developments come in promising affordable housing for people other than students, and then turn around and say, well, gee golly, we can't really control that, so now this is student housing.
Yeah, well, we're on the same page
We're
there.
working very
And,
hard
yeah.
to address it.
I should also say that well, I forgot what I was going to say. I had something brilliant to say, and then there it goes. Come back to me in a minute.
The point that I made in this memo that
Oh, I know what.
that there are sweeping changes that would take control away from the towns. That really concerns me a lot.
You're
And
referring to 830G?
830G and the bills that Desegregate Connecticut has advocated for, Work, Live, Ride isn't one. And those
Right.
those concerns you ought to take to Greg Haddad or Pat Boyd or whoever your
I have.
representative is.
But, you know, I think all the town bodies are very much behind increasing our supply of affordable housing. And that does then mean that we then maintain control about where the housing is built and how it's built and who it serves, which we haven't done a very good job of in the past. We have less than 7% of our housing is affordable, and we shouldn't be proud of that. So that's what this committee is
Yeah.
concerned.
Also,
We're well aware of the issue of, you know, the scarce affordable housing being used for students.
yeah, that's
We understand students need housing.
not this
it's-
much.
It's a problem.
The-
So
Anyway,
that's-
yeah, perhaps late to the gathering. You guys have been on this for a long time perhaps, but I just wanted to make sure I spoke up about this particular issue, and having done so, I will relinquish the
I-
to the meeting.
830G in its strictest application, it makes the likelihood of a developer coming into our town and doing some super high density thing a little lower than in cities where they have a lot of opportunity for that. The economy of building a building with lots of affordable housing as a commercial project doesn't really fly too well around here. So economically speaking, so I don't think 830G is quite the threat to us that it might be to some other towns.
So thank you, David. We appreciate the discussion. Stay involved.
I intend to. Thank you for listening.
Good. There was a second item under public comment. This is 3B. This was a public comment to the town council, but Paul picked this up because it was concerning affordable housing. So thank you, Paul, and Paul also read a very
Right.
excellent response to this. Do you want to?
Actually, I think I'd like to read it
Oh,
so-
excellent.
so that whoever's listening in the now or in the future.
I don't see, Aaron. Aaron was.
Well, he
the
probably,
gentleman who-
I think he probably
Took it
tuned
to
in
the
on
council.
YouTube. A lot of people don't watch live, but they get
Mm.
back around to
Right,
us.
right.
And I also think that with your permission, I might like to read it to the town council, read it to the town council meeting, which is where the most people have eyes on.
So why
this
don't you
issue.
read it to us first, and
Okay.
then we'll, decide whether to
Okay,
take it to the town council, since some of us may not have done our homework. No, I'm just kidding.
all right, I will read it. I'm calling this crime versus affordable housing, a false equation. At the last, I don't know if it was the last town council meeting, a member of the public made a comment related to affordable housing that must be addressed. In his remarks to the council, the local resident questioned the value of affordable housing as a community asset. He compared the crime rates of municipalities with the highest amounts of affordable housing to those with the least, suggesting that greater amounts of affordable housing is somehow related to greater amounts of crime. This equation is flawed on many levels, including the notion that a household's low income makes the commission of crimes by its members more likely. It suggests that affordable housing will create problems here similar to those experienced by Connecticut's cities, where decades of discrimination and neglect have created generations of concentrated poverty and a host of social problems. Many of those problems and their causes are identified in an excellent ProPublica Connecticut Mirror story entitled "Separated by Design: Why Affordable Housing is Built in Areas with High Crime, Few Jobs, and Struggling Schools." The article makes the point that in a recent federal study of 21 states, Connecticut had the second highest concentration of affordable housing in high poverty neighborhoods, behind only Mississippi. It goes on to say, Connecticut's extreme concentration of affordable housing in poor areas is owed largely to its selection process. The residents' remarks to the town council ignored the benefits that carefully planned affordable housing brings to the entire community and how it helps prevent and/or reverse some of the social decay and the cost of dealing with it that our historic practices have wrought. It also ignores the moral obligation that those of us who are the most fortunate feel toward those who are not. I know the members of our committee do not share the sentiments of this one person's well-meaning comment, and that the town is generally supportive of the affordable housing initiative. But I don't think poorly informed ideas like this should go unchallenged. That's why I have asked that this letter be on our next agenda and published in the agenda packet. Maybe it will help all members of our community better understand the value of our pursuit.
I think I move that Paul presented to the town council.
Second. Is there a second? All in favor?
So just read,
Oh,
you'll read it in public comment.
But I'll be able to read it with the endorsement of the Affordable Housing Committee.
Yeah, and I would, when you're doing that, just introduce yourself, Vice Chair, and say I'm at the February 1st meeting, the Affordable Housing Committee authorized me to
Right.
read this into the,
That would be fine.
Okay, did we do an aye?
sorry.
no, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Excellent,
Let me
thank you.
just mention that.
That article that is referenced, there's a
Attached here.
copy of it in the packet. It's an excellent article.
You know, the guy sort of had it backwards. He was saying that, affordable housing is in high crime areas. Well, it's because governments have put it all there in the high crime areas.
Exactly.
80%. That's what they cite in the article. It's really
The,
incredible.
I follow Nextdoor Mansfield. And it's actually next door, lots of things, but there have been some nasty comments about all the housing being built, and I've responded to all of them factually rather than emotionally, because it's much better to do factually, right?
Mhm.
And it's been nice to see the number of people who are, putting likes on that
That's great.
and agreeing. So it was, for example, somebody wanted to know what were these boxes going up here on South Eagleville Road, and so I told them what they were, and then I told her, she said, oh, good.
Yeah, it's the level of ignorance about what's going on in our own community is really quite high.
Mhm.
And it's regrettable, and it's because, partly because there's no media here to speak of. But, you know, we're in a news desert practically.
Yeah.
And, you know, Facebook is not a reliable source of information.
Great. Well, thank you again, Paul, for addressing that important issue.
You're welcome, my pleasure, as we say.
I think the next issue should be relatively small, hopefully, 4A. This is the review form for when we get applications. Sheila worked on this. Thank you,
I
Sheila.
didn't do much, you redid it.
So last, Gina. Welcome.
Gina,
The last meeting suggestions were to convert some of the questions from 1 to 5 ranking to a yes or no. So Sheila selected the appropriate ones and we reformatted to reflect that. I will probably put this into Google Forms. So that way we'll just send you a link and you go there and there's a form and you just click.
Is that a public
Yeah.
record issue?
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
How's that?
Oh,
Well,
so the whole results
Have
of
to
the
be-
voting will be compiled by Google Forms and then put into the packet.
well, it's not, we don't have anything adopted yet in terms of
No,
formal
But I'm
Process
just saying in
application,
terms
yeah.
of,
for the community.
Accessibility.
And we don't have
the
a process
advantage
either.
will be that it'll do all the counting. So it doesn't have to be done manually, and then that
Nice.
report will have all the information, can just be one page in our
And this is
packet
after we
for
have a
public.
process established. and everything.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So we will meet for your requirements. So is there any other recommendations on this?
No, great job.
I thought it was better now. Made more sense to me.
Someone want to move to adopt? I'll move to adopt.
Okay.
You can't move to it.
Right.
I can't?
No, not as chair.
Oh, I thought
I move to adopt
it.
then.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll second.
Thank you.
All in
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's the punishment for being the chairman.
Can't move anything? Approved. Hey. Next issue might be, 4B might be a little more.
Yeah.
So this is return of the tax abatement ordinance. Okay, so I made 2 important changes to this since the last meeting. The first one is I inserted a clause under 3, and I put a little arrow there. Affordable units constructed to satisfy requirements under Article 10, Section W4A are not eligible for tax abatement. That's the required 15% on new construction. So we approved something and they had to meet the affordable housing requirements. They had to provide 15% affordable. I'm saying those are not eligible for
That's-
tax abatement.
That's under, the Article 10 you refer to is in a different,
That's the zoning code,
Right.
right?
It's a zoning
Article 10
code,
of our-
so they
we
have
might-
to
we
be
make
clear.
that-
recodified them, but I would say per the zoning regulations, but.
just per the zoning regulations.
Because
yeah.
they're
I
now.
thought I did pretty well citing the.
No, I didn't-
thing.
I
You
You did, but I didn't know what it was.
W is the
Out-of-date
old
one.
one, but yeah.
I didn't know what it was, because.
Right, I recognize
It wasn't in
it
here.
from other
Oh.
issues, but
And the other important issue is, unfortunately,
if I could just, before you move on,
Yeah,
basically what that says is you can only get abated for stuff you build over and above our
correct,
affordable housing minimum requirement.
except, well, we can talk about it, because I don't,
yeah.
But that's what his language is
Yeah.
intended.
The other important
So I understand.
change is Section 8. The state no longer reimburses the towns for tax abatement, so they stopped that in 2015, unfortunately.
So then it becomes a money issue, doesn't it?
For the town. So I want to open this up for discussion now. I think reading this thing is just, again, all I did was cut and paste from things that probably lawyers put together, contracts people, so it's not understandable, but to me, it's the idea that, an example would be, here's an apartment complex. And we could approach them and say, we want you to provide whatever, 30% affordable units in your complex. And they'll say, well, I'm gonna lose all this rent money. How are you gonna compensate me? Tax abatement becomes an ideal way to do that because the contracts are typically written long-term. So we have to do this over the deed restricted periods, whatever, 40 years. Tax abatement contracts are written long-term, 20 years, 40 years. And it becomes this, you don't have to pay all this money up front. The amount of money is large. You don't have to pay that up front. It takes care of itself annually. So annually, there's a rent loss annually and there's taxes annual. So you're adjusting the formula, whatever's decided in the contract between the owner and the town in terms of how many units and how much tax abatement. And that will probably have to be adjusted every year, but those two, the money supply is there because the taxes aren't going to go away. And the need for that money is always there because there's always going to be compensation for lower rents. So that's why I think it's a good tool for getting stuff done and getting it deed restricted for 40 years.
How do we analyze the costs of these? How do we?
We're not
figure
going to
this-
do that.
No, so, let me, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
I spoke with Larry Klutz, who's been referred to me, and he is actually he does affordable housing throughout the whole state, and he consults and but he is currently consulting with the Mansfield nonprofit who's developing Eagleville Green, among other like supportive housing and Stanford, and it feels like he's probably had his hand in affordable housing throughout this, most developments. But he was saying that these abatements are really important for developers. So for example, and I'll brief you on this when I'm at the appropriate point of the agenda, but the housing authority has land. They're going to be coming into you at your next meeting to talk about a proposal that they have.
Yay.
So when they're going to like CHAPA, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, they can say, hey, we're looking for money from Mansfield, from CHAPA, and we know Mansfield's gonna give us X million dollars because they have this in their affordable housing trust. They're gonna abate our taxes, and that just gives them more points to get this funding. So these are important, and I don't know, and I think they're important for those types of reasons, but I think anytime the town adopts an ordinance, it's up to the council to do that. So what you're doing is you're recommending that, the town adopt this ordinance under this enabling legislation 8-215. And these are the policy considerations that the council should be addressing. Like for example, Guilford only does it for not-for-profits. Larry said, and then you would include any development any affordable housing that is developed as part of the affordable housing requirements pursuant to the zoning regulations do not qualify for such tax abatement. The other thing is you can have different types of abatements, and if you're doing if they're doing 80%, then they probably would get a less of an abatement.
That makes sense.
But if they're doing, so those are policy decisions that the town council will make, but those are, you don't need to go through the ordinance, but this, I think, definitely should be moved forward based on my conversation with Larry to the council. But I think bulleted points of policy decisions, that if you could do that for the council, I think that would be really helpful. That's what they would be looking for. And then they'll craft it into this, code of ordinances, and that,
What do you mean by bulleted points of what?
you say, as you move forward with adopting such an ordinance, we encourage you to omit developments that affordable housing that has been developed as a result of the affordable housing set aside
Right.
requirements.
So
cited
take
in
this
the regs.
document and turn it into like,
or it's beyond this document.
I would just say, we encourage the town council to consider adopting a tax abatement for the development of affordable housing units. And I'll help, like, remember when you adopted those priorities, I helped you draft the language, but you guys developed your priorities. So I think you need to think about a high level. If such an abatement were to be enacted, what would you want them to add or not add? I'm hearing if someone's building a multifamily housing and they have to do it because to meet the zoning regulations, that's already, they have to do that anyway. So why
Right.
would you give them a tax abatement?
Right.
So if they're going to be doing, I hear from this committee all the time that they want to see more housing for like below 50% AMI, then
Right.
you could scale the abatement.
Well,
Right.
we established, for example, priorities, didn't we? In terms of the people who should be targeted for affordable housing. And,
Right.
So-
And those priorities are on record with the town
Right,
council.
right.
so, I wouldn't even go to the 80%, frankly, because the need,
Yeah.
because if we think about that, I was talking to someone who's been in
Yeah.
a bunch of, a friend who does affordable housing consultation, nationally, and, she was saying, what is, for example, in Hartford County, 80% of the median income is around, $100,000, so why would we give, tax abatements? You can build housing, that would be great if someone wants to build housing for teachers and, firemen and whoever else is making, I don't know who's making $100,000, but if it's housing that, and I like the idea of keeping it to nonprofits, but if it's housing, because developers aren't going to target, they're not gonna do housing for the lower income of that range.
So can't we control the contract? We just say, this is what we want. I mean, this doesn't say anything in terms of the details. I think there's a lot of flexibility. You could say, here's a place and you're gonna get the tax abatement on 100% of the units. And then you say, in terms of affordable, we want 40 at, 50%.
Well, I don't
It
know
should
that
take
way.
case those
Consistent.
terms.
You can't make up new terms for each developer, though. Because
They do, you have to write a contract with each developer.
Really, well, how are you gonna
But
get away
but
with
the
that?
ordinance really specifies what
What the priorities are.
should be in the
Right,
contract.
right.
Right, but it doesn't say the details, like any numbers.
Well, I think it would be better, frankly.
Because you could do this all different kinds of ways. I mean, you could say, okay, do X at 80% or do Y at 50%.
Well, I don't know that we even have to do that. I think if.
No, we don't have.
I think we should say at what income and population groups that tax abatement should be used by the town to assist in the development. Because it's for those lower income groups that it's impossible to build
Right,
housing
right,
without
Right,
extensive multiple sources of funding.
I would say like 50% or lower, and maybe specialized, like age restricted, for instance.
I think. I'm sure the housing authority will have ideas as to how, so they're gonna wanna, I think encouraging. I think this committee should encourage the council to consider. You have to bullet it, so consider limiting this to not-for-profits, if that's what you want. Consider
I have a question
a
about that.
scaling, developing a scale based on the number of units. And the percentage of affordability might be something you'd want to throw out there.
Yeah.
And
Some sort of
maybe,
scale.
maybe you don't want to, maybe, I don't know what's so magic about a nonprofit. I don't
Well,
know.
but I
Do
mean,
nonprofits
private
pay
is
taxes?
faster and cheaper.
if you're nonprofit, you're 501c3.
No,
tax
not
exempt.
necessarily. I mean, there are,
But-
I was just talking with
Yeah,
Larry. There's definitely a lot of nonprofits who specialize in building housing. They're also for profit. I think in the end, you probably just want to make sure that the housing is built And it's administered in a way that it's ensured to be affordable for a long period of time, right?
That's
Right,
right, the
right.
restrictions
Yeah.
pretty much do.
But
but
so
So
those are things that.
I think what I'm hearing is we have to supplement, I mean, you said, give us a sample, and this is just
Yep.
a sampling from a bunch of
Yep,
things. But what's missing is our priorities,
Yeah.
specific to tax abatement.
Yeah, but I
Yes.
wouldn't write it, what I think what Jennifer's trying to nicely say is we probably shouldn't give them a written ordinance.
No,
well, you can say,
But I mean,
here's,
this is a
here's a couple
sample.
examples,
Right.
here's the enabling legislation. We want Mansfield to do this because we're the Affordable Housing Committee. And as you develop this, we strongly, we urge you to consider ABC.
Right, well, who are you going to apply it to really is what, and
Right.
how are you going to apply it to who you apply it to?
So-
So it would help
so
them
what
to
this
know
is
what our
missing is
priorities.
a big thing that says sample. Right,
Uh,
and we can
bullet
say in our
and bullets.
document.
Or our
No, you
priorities.
can, I mean, this is fine, they know this is a
Well,
sample, because it's not,
except the 80% is in here.
Right, and our priorities might be 50% and age restricted
okay.
and,
So
you know.
that's-
For
Okay.
argument.
Well, that's just a definition.
yeah, because all of the other ordinances, like, for example, Guilford's, when I pulled that, they define what an affordable housing unit is, and they're basically using
Right. So I just,
what's used in this.
I
Yeah.
just pulled that out from.
So we-
Yeah,
as a definition.
So we need our own criteria, that's all. For
Our
what,
priority, our
Yeah.
criteria, right?
As you develop the, whatever, I think the criteria would go in the tax abatement contract, right? That they develop. Because what you're saying
Yes.
is, so I'm a developer, Jen's gonna go develop housing, I go to the town, I say, I want to apply for this abatement. And then
we
the
say,
town,
Here's our,
I'm doing this mix of a market rate, affordable, blah, blah, blah. And then they're gonna have criteria by which to develop a contract, I think. is
Right,
how
right,
it
right.
Probably. would
yeah,
work.
but if we don't want 80% units to get an abatement, then we need, that has to be
Right,
written into the
specific.
code, you know. The abatement only applies to
Right.
units that are
So,
50 or 30.
criteria to develop a contract.
Yeah, well, just like,
Exactly.
or your priorities, what you want them to look at,
Right,
like
right.
what, if you guys are all tax-paying residents, what do you feel is okay for us all to give up? Like, what are
Right.
the values, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Remember when we were given the chart that showed us like the percentage of like seniors, by age group and then by the percentage? Like, and it was by county. I think it comes from the state. Do you remember this?
I think that,
Tylee?
yeah, Kylie put
Oh,
together. some
because it
census data.
Yes, because I almost feel like we should say, because this is like a cherry for, right? Like
It's a, right.
it's a big
It's a-
thing.
it's a
I
subsidy.
wonder if we say the highest demand, whatever the demand is, because there will be flexibility. Like our needs are gonna change as a town based on what's built, like say a big
Right.
senior complex gets built, it might be less than,
Mhm.
or like now we have, what.
It can't be too much of a moving target though, because then we'll get in a lot of trouble for being arbitrary and
No,
unfair.
if
and-
we base it on like the census data of the highest need
Yes,
population.
as long as we say that it's sort of like the way the fee in lieu works. In that case, they cited a specific organization that had a table of values and they said, we're gonna do 4% of this particular identifiable table of values, and that was gonna be the metric that we use, and it applies to everyone. So all I'm saying is we have to define carefully what our metric is gonna be, so that when people come forward,
Mhm.
they say, well, I looked at your guidelines and I ran the numbers on my thing, and it looks like I'm entitled to X amount of money. We have to
Well,
have it,
I don't know that you want to calibrate it to that extent. I mean, some of these other ordinances that I read, it's all part of a negotiated process based upon whatever criteria are set out in the ordinance. And
it
so
just sounds like trouble to me.
And we've done, well,
that's the way they've done it.
Yeah.
well, I don't know, it wasn't in ordinance, but the town for Helinco, anytime with the housing authority, we've already done these contracts, we do them with them.
Right.
That's practice, but what this does with an ordinance like this, or anytime you kind of do something like this, it codifies it, so like if the administration decides that's not what they want to do, they would have to change the ordinance, which makes it a little harder, A. B, it's kind of an advertisement saying, hey,
Right.
like we value this
Yeah.
enough to codify this in our code of ordinances. So,
That's what
but I
Frank
think,
said.
yeah, I think, you wanna allow it to be flexible, and I just pulled up your priorities, and maybe it's just, I mean, what's gonna happen is they're gonna say to me, go ahead and draft something up, and, so I'm gonna call Mike and say, can you help me with this? But you, and then we're gonna go back to your priorities, which the council adopted,
Right.
and we're gonna try to figure something out, and then the ordinance will be drafted, and then it will come back to you for your comments, and then there'll be a public hearing. So,
Well, but yeah, but if we're gonna use it as a carrot, you know, as a bait to attract the right kind of development, it's gotta be predictable enough so that some developer can go on our website and see the criteria and say, maybe I ought to change my proposal before I even get in there. Let me adjust my numbers and get my house in order so that when I come forward, I have a plan that works for me and them. And they don't have to worry at that point about getting into a really complicated negotiation that could, you know, plus, do we want to negotiate with each and every applicant in a different way? That just strikes me as a non-governmental way to operate.
I'm just thinking, you know, most of that contract will be a boilerplate.
Well,
Well,
that's-
unless you,
And
you know,
then
set
the
percentages.
finances are gonna.
we're not gonna
change
have
the
hundreds of
project.
these.
No, of course not. But even if you have two,
Like three. And so,
even if you have three, even if there are three and one of the three feels like it's not being treated fairly,
no,
then you're gonna have
Well,
a mess.
well, right,
Because
so
that's the way
there has to be,
attorneys-
it's like, a
The
special
private
permit, right?
developers
Yeah.
don't
There's,
Want this population.
there's, it's a special permit, it gives the plan, this would not come from planning and zoning, but this would come from the council, but a special permit sets out guardrails, but it gives planning and zoning commission flexibility to evaluate
Right.
each thing. So I think you guys are developing the special permit
Guardrails.
guardrails.
Yeah.
So but there has to be flexibility, but it can't be arbitrary and capricious.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
that's all my concern is. I don't want to make it sound like it's a, you know, what, we do a different thing for every project that comes forward because we can't
Right.
operate that.
That said, as with zoning regulations, the guardrails change as you learn how to
Yeah.
do this better. So, I mean, that's life, right? Hopefully we're,
You
improving.
know, I'm hoping most of the text is the same for all of these and the numbers change. But
Yeah.
They're gonna change anyway. Every
Right.
developer is gonna have their own numbers for every project. And they, you know, mostly they'll work out the numbers, just knowing our priorities. Right? So if you say we don't want 80%, we want 50%, then that's how they're gonna do their numbers, right? And they can do it. And bring it to us.
Or-
right?
Do any of the ordinances specify percentage of units?
Nah, they're just general.
But how much, do they specify how much or what kind of an abatement we're talking about?
No,
All of them require a contract, and I think that's where all the nitty gritty is.
it's most
And
of
I
them,
couldn't find any
it's a
contract.
negotiated,
such a big-
most of them are setting up what are the parameters for the negotiated process that occurs between the town and the developer. But I didn't see anything, the ones that I read, I didn't read all of them, that sets out actual percentages of, let's say,
Right,
we're coming in with
right.
well, Eagleville Green would be great because it's, you know, 34 units that are affordable at the various levels of affordability,
Right.
8 are market rate,
Right, and you would
Um,
expect a larger abatement for that than you would.
right?
And they already
So-
have an abatement and they figured it out. So they.
Okay, well, that's good.
So we have, and I was not involved with it, but Rebecca came to the council and said, and it's all, I skimmed a meeting way back when, but, and basically, for the affordable units, they're paying a little bit of taxes because they understand that they're their residents are gonna use services, much lower, so they're paying for their affordable units a much lower rate, and then for their market rate ones, they're paying a higher rate. But,
Well, that would make
but
sense.
it's fixed,
Well,
yeah.
right.
So it's predictable for them.
I have a question. I don't know if a lot of people realize how much money it is to offset the loss in rent. So I mean, I watched, and they're talking about the fee in lieu and they're going, $3 million, oh, that's so much money, we're gonna build so much affordable housing.
Right.
No, we're not.
That is not going to, in terms of a 40-year deed restriction, that isn't a lot of money.
And I know you guys ran the numbers.
Right,
We did.
they're the
They're
same
huge.
numbers as the fee in lieu, so. Is there a number that we put in here that says, to offset the rent loss for 40 years for this amount is gonna be $10 million?
Well, I
That's gonna
think
come out of our
People are aware.
taxpayers as opposed to out of.
Because
it might
I'm
cost
just
so much
worried-
money, but
I'm just worried that people are gonna say, why are they asking, you're recommending a tax abatement? They have their fee in lieu, that's got $5 million,
That's,
and that's nothing.
The fee in
Oh,
lieu
I
doesn't
don't know.
apply in this circumstance.
No, I know, but they're gonna say, why do they need more money
Well,
from the
that's-
town?
That's a predictable thing anyway. The minute we say tax abatement, all the people that pay taxes are gonna say, why are you giving my money away to have
I
a
don't know,
house?
we have a lot of tax abatements in this town,
Yeah.
and people don't seem to mind.
they know
what's
that?
In that ordinance.
Do the
I
people
don't,
know
well,
that?
everyone has public, anytime you pass an ordinance, you have to have a public hearing.
I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of reality, which is that you can have 100 public hearings and like only 7 people are gonna know and when it's all done, what
Yeah,
you
I mean,
actually
Veterans
did.
have them, farmers have
Yeah.
them, there's a lot of people that have them. but-
Okay, well, that's good, but
So-
I just know from how the public, the uninformed public reacts to these kinds of things, and you have to be prepared to at least answer them,
Right,
reasonably.
and I think that, well, and to your point, I don't know that we're only gonna be able to abate taxes, that's not gonna cut.
No, but to me, it says, if you approach someone and say, we want you to reduce the rent on, 30% of your units, they're gonna say, well, that's gonna cost me X million dollars for
Right.
the next 40 years.
well, you're
Why should
talking
I
about
do
a
that?
private developer, but I don't know if they're gonna be reducing their rents. They might do it, they might reduce them a little bit, but they're not gonna wanna hit the 50% of under,
But if the
market.
tax abatement covers it, then.
That would be,
Right, but then you have to be, I mean, if
It
I
won't
were a
cover it.
developer,
it won't cover it
if I were a
Right.
developer, I would
for
say,
40 years.
you're holding me these, I'm building 50 units and half of them are affordable. Well, I'll just raise the rents on the other 50, on the market rates a little bit, there's some games that you can play with the costs and the
Right.
revenue and all that stuff. So it's not quite as simple as,
Right.
they're not gonna necessarily just
Well,
say,
So-
yeah, okay.
Believe me, I suspect if we actually do an enabling statute or ordinance. If we get 2 or 3 proposals that come into us, that would be terrific, but I'm not gonna get any more than that, because
We haven't got any place
there's
to
no
put them in.
profit in doing the
Yeah,
affordable housing.
No, there isn't any.
I mean, there's not even any profit, obviously, enough profit for people to build market rate, senior housing, which is huge demand. And Jennifer has talked to these developers, they don't wanna do that, they wanna do student.
So
housing.
it sounds like we need a document that describes our priorities,
We have it,
right? But it's written in terms of the framework of a tax abatement.
Yeah, we need,
And so we have that, then we have this as a sample, and then we would take that to the town council.
I think what you're gonna do is you're gonna keep it really simple, and you're gonna say, we want the town to adopt this ordinance. And here's the enabling legislation. As you consider adopting this, please consider these. 4, whatever.
list of criteria. or
Yeah,
whatever.
and you might wanna look at Guilford's cause usually what happens is you just take someone else's
So
Uh,
Guilford's,
or Guilford's or
Guilford's
who,
is-
whoever.
focuses on conditions of contract.
Yeah.
And if you look at the others, that have all these other things that I've included, like use of the tax abatement funds, that's important.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
contract requirements is largely Guilford.
so you have a definition, usage, reduce,
Terms of
Guilford
the
has-
abatement. Determination of property values. You know, this is important. I don't know what it means, but it's important. I don't know how you do it, but other
the assessor
people
does
had.
that,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Other people had that. I don't know if Guilford did. Guilford was very focused on,
They have a lot about the
Contract
contract.
right.
Yeah, with the interest of making work, in the interest of making more work for us, it seems to me that we need a written recommendation that moves forward to whoever's gonna, the council or whoever, something that is in language and written out so that it can be relied on and they can look at it and study it and this is where we stand, this is what we want. When I say written, I don't mean an ordinance, I mean just,
Right,
a
right.
document
And
that,
if they like
Right.
it, then they give it to
then
Jennifer.
they'll say, Jennifer, go do this,
Right,
right?
that's right.
So, well, I think what you're gonna, well, I'm gonna have my agenda item meeting with, I'm gonna tell the town manager, you want this on the agenda, okay? Then I have to write an agenda item summary, and in that agenda item summary, I'm gonna say, pursuant to 8-215, there's state enabling legislation that allows for tax abatements on affordable housing. What's the town council wants to know, why do you do this in 3 sentences or less? Because it allows for developers to come in and leverage, qualify for more state and federal funding. It advertises to the town that you're open for business, you support affordable housing. Here are some good examples to look towards, and you will include those as attachments. And as Mansfield develops their own ordinance, we, the Affordable Housing Committee, would like to see ABCD.
Right, and the things that encourage the kind of housing that we actually
Right,
need.
oh, yeah, whatever, I mean, that's what it will have to tell the council is
Right.
why they should even spend their time with the town attorney to do
Right.
this.
Okay, so. I don't mind, since I'm pushing this thing. I don't mind drafting something to send to you.
Yeah, and then
I
maybe
know our priorities, I know.
you can say, I can send you the old agenda item summary or the
Sure.
agenda item summary that we did when you established your priorities. We talked
Sure.
about the fact that you established a trust fund and why we did that, and then you've been working hard and reviewing and you want this, and please adopt this.
Why don't you draft something and then I'll pretty it up.
Well,
I
like that.
don't know, see,
Well,
I don't think you know what you're doing,
Put the
Mike.
bullets on there.
No, I didn't.
But we'll have it
I
at
am
our
a
meeting. We're not
professional
gonna send
editor.
it.
I know, I'm
Okay,
a
so
technical, right?
this is
Very
Guilford.
technical, right.
Sounds
What?
like.
I mean,
Because
I-
Guilford calls it the Elderly Tax Relief Program.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds nice.
no,
What do they call it?
it's called the one.
But
But,
maybe there's a second one.
This is what I have.
Should come up with a nice name.
do
for it.
we,
We would consider it at the next meeting. I'm not willing to just say, let's draft this.
No, this is gonna be a
Okay,
process.
that was my
I
next
feel like
question.
it's gotta be a process.
okay, so.
As much as I think you both are so wonderful, but.
So you need, okay, I think you should plan
So
to
the
try to
action is,
move this to the council for their, like maybe their first meeting in March.
Okay,
Which means that's aggressive because that's March 11th.
well, when is our next meeting?
Your next meeting is March 1st.
So that means we have to have something ready and approved by our March 1st meeting.
And I have to meet with the town manager.
Well, we could
Is
do a
that
little
too
work
fast?
session. if
And we
we-
could
Oh,
have a special meeting.
You know what? Shoot, your next meeting's not to March 7th.
We
And
should do a little work session.
I would
maybe.
have it, you can't get on till March 25th because I would have all the agenda, they have to publish their packet
Right,
the day of your meeting, and all of that stuff has to happen.
I think that timing's fine.
Yeah, and
March
I
7th.
especially want a work session because I'm in Savannah on work.
okay, so
Right.
we're shooting to
Let's
get
make
it
it
to them
nice.
by the March
Exactly.
25 meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so the action is to get this drafted for our next meeting on the 7th.
Or could we have a work session and
I always feel like,
Our next
I
meeting's on March 7, right?
feel like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
good
okay.
to work off a draft. I think we're trying to draft.
no, no,
something
no, I'm
as a
saying if
group
you and
is-
Paul have a draft. could
Oh.
we-
Well, yeah, why don't we?
Oh, yeah.
If we pull something
3-7 is,
together that looks like we can do it, why don't we then hold the option of holding a little work session where everyone can look at it and kick it around and do whatever.
Amy, what time is
So
it?
our next meeting, the
Oh, I was
housing
just
authorities.
reading.
Our
are
hands in
gonna
our,
be here.
chins in our hands.
Housing authority is gonna be here next meeting, so I think that's gonna take a lot of our time.
Yes,
it
it
is.
is. It's gonna take
The
all,
Housing
yeah.
authority is gonna be.
Oh,
here.
yeah, so, yeah, we should,
Do you think if we have a draft and everyone's read it, we can
yeah,
discuss it at the next meeting? Or you wanna have a separate work session?
well, I won't be here. And I'm not gonna.
Why don't we
be
hold
on
off on making that decision and see how far we get on this draft and how
Ooh.
thorough we think it is.
Punting backwards, that's fine,
It's
that's
okay.
fine. So I'm gonna cross that out, draft it.
Do we have so what they do is a tax relief program for seniors
Is
where
that for
like,
individual people or?
yeah, for
developers?
seniors.
We have something like that.
Where it then puts a lien, but like so that their
No.
taxes freeze to
I,
keep them in their house.
No, we have. a
we have
reduction.
Reduction of the tax.
Yeah.
Oh, they
it's
do?
Like
Yeah.
they have an abatement, and then also for veterans, there's a whole bunch of. tax-
That's for
Gotcha.
individual
That's
owners
right.
of
And-
property.
Well, this is,
Right.
but just for seniors. That's interesting. So it helps seniors stay in their
Right.
homes.
Right, and then when you sell your property, then you have to pay back
Uh,
all the taxes that.
oh, by,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we do that as
Right.
well.
Good, do you guys wanna
That's-
talk about
That's
this
pretty
anymore?
cool.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, oh, I
Property
didn't know.
tax
Yeah.
relief for elderly homeowners. It's
Yeah.
Article not, yeah, I can.
Oh, I don't need it, but that's what I found at first for Guilford, and I was like, oh.
I think I've said everything I could possibly say about.
Any other
Tax
thing on
It
the
makes
tax
me say,
abatement, if we
like-
have an action, it's reasonable.
No, they don't give you nothing. I mean, it's not.
I know.
It's almost like a grant that you pay back.
Yeah,
Once the house,
you know, they
your
help
house
you
is
out.
sold.
But they take it back.
I'm like,
when you
because
sell.
that would be a way of creating affordable housing for seniors,
Yeah, and,
like doing that type of thing out of affordable housing. If you have a senior that falls within those
Guidelines.
funding guidelines that they get. They get,
They do that.
But they have to pay.
but they have to pay it back.
When they
There's
sell their
state
property-
They sell their
When they
home.
sell their
If the state wants
property, they
it.
have to pay it back, yeah.
And
There's
you're
like
paying it
3
back to the
different
town?
models for tax abatement, I saw them, but I didn't.
Yeah,
read
but
them.
just, just, I don't like it, but that's, I mean, but for somebody who really needs it, I get this, saying, okay.
Yeah, it
well,
keeps
I
them in
can-
their
I
house.
can keep my house affordable, I can stay here,
Right,
although I know that when I die and I sell my house, I gotta give them back their money.
No, the estate doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I guess you only get a tax relief up into the value of your home.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. I'm assuming it would be that,
Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe it's
Okay.
like a reverse mortgage if you outlive your reverse
Right.
mortgage. Too bad for the person that gave you the mortgage.
Yeah.
okay, let's move on to new business. So 5A is collaboration between UConn and our committee. We've been talking about this, so I put it on the agenda. Just see if we can have an action. Thoughts on this?
Well, unless there's someone we wanted to, and somebody from UConn who could come and talk to us about how they, what they do for their students who have difficulties either, paying for housing or
So
I don't
a-
know.
a person from
or what do
housing.
they do when they develop units? Or, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, what they do for graduate students. We know that what they do, so I don't know what else we,
So one thing I
or
thought
land,
is,
or the land.
I
they
mean,
have.
we talked about
We're not a policy
the
body.
town university committee, I think. Are people following them regularly?
Well, I'm following what you kind
It
of
doesn't seem like they
does.
hold a lot of meetings.
Yeah,
They
I
hold them
looked,
quarterly.
every 2
Yeah, every
months.
two-
It's
Really?
quarterly.
So one
No,
thing I
No,
thought
I
is
don't
we
think it's-
just,
I don't know,
Maybe
but
it's semi.
have
the
it.
one I looked at, it was. a
I'm
big
looking at
space between.
all the files from from the last few years. They haven't had that many meetings,
Right.
but they go from like June to August to October to December. It looks like they have them every 2 months.
So one thing I'm thinking is, if we have somebody from this committee dedicated to seeing what that committee's doing and then reporting to us, then are we gonna be on top of things?
Now, you know, I think, as I said at the last meeting, it really is what is important to the town to bring up and to be working with the university and the town-gown relationships. What are the priorities for the town? So for example, we talked about land that the university might have that we potentially could use. Is that a priority for the town? We talked to the town about that. Is that something that would bring it up? Is that where they would bring it up? I think we should really figure out what they talked about.
You could, so there's
Have them
multi
come to our
level,
meetings.
so first of all, I think it's hard for, in my year and a half in this position where I am meeting with the manager and Yukon representatives. We always hear it's very hard for one person to speak for that university because like,
Right.
even the president doesn't speak for
You
it,
got a
right?
million
It's like
different
the manager does-
tentacles.
Yeah, so I think the board of trustees is the one that speaks, and then they report to the government. I don't know how that works, but it's very hard, if you're talking to someone in real estate, they're not gonna speak for the whole entire university, so, but, so there's several levels to communicate and develop this relationship, and one of them is at the staff level, so when I'm meeting with, our contacts at UConn, kind of bringing that up. There's also, I mean, the mayor also meets on her own sometimes. I don't know if it's a formal meeting, but on occasion, I think she's in, and that could be something, or the town council could just express to the university that they would like to see more, the university be involved in the ways that they can, and that would include looking at university land. What else could they do? They could do,
Well, when they're building a dormitory.
Yeah.
And they're planning to add 700 units of student housing to the campus. Or let's say they're gonna renovate a whole bunch of buildings and make them nice so that students actually want to live in them again.
yep,
That would be good information for the planning board, certainly, and town people, so that they know us. How badly do we need more student housing if the university is gonna do it? Those kinds of equations, I haven't seen any history of that thinking happening in our.
well, so
There's
there's
been kind of a wall between these two.
the planning and zoning, I mean, Paul Aho we get a development update every month, and you can go online actually and see like what the university is not gonna tell us anything that they're privately doing. I mean, they just,
Well,
they
that,
can't.
and that's,
So, so at the university, the town gown university relations meeting, we always, Sean Basington always reviews updated plans for dorms and other capital projects. So the town is aware, the Planning and Zoning Commission is aware. But just to remember, the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't control the market.
right.
They control the zone, and theoretically, the zone, you should try to understand what the market is before you're like looking at density, but it's very clear that, certainly when you're evaluating an application, you cannot look at, yeah, so,
I understand all that,
yeah,
but I also watched the process when the Capstone project was underway.
yeah,
And what happened there was this project comes forward that clearly the university did not want.
Yeah.
I mean, and they made that clear in 9 different ways, including bringing lawyers to the meetings and offering to litigate and doing all the things that they did. And that conflict, in my view, should never have happened that way. There should have been some awareness on both sides of town way ahead of time that, folks, this is not necessarily what we want to do or want to see happen in that zone or whatever. And what I think
Well, they made that clear, but then they went.
They made
back
it
to
clear
it.
at the last minute, and then they went
Last
ahead and
minute.
brought the
Which I
hammer.
don't think they'll ever be able to do again.
Well,
I
and
mean,
they
that's-
blew up the whole relationship in a way.
Yeah.
But now we're repairing that
Yes.
and that we have a developed, like staff works. And there's been so much staff transition.
Yeah.
So like every time we get some traction, like, you know, we get a new president or, you know, and these folks are trying to do the best they can too. So we have this like development framework so that we know that, you know, the town is always gonna feel this way about things. The university is gonna feel this way, but there's a lot of area right here where we feel the same. And we need to go, and that's what we're trying to, that's the space we're trying to define, and that happens on so many
And
levels.
they do have a development website. You can. see
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
planning, and they go to the state, like, there is a
I know.
proposal right now for what they're asking for bonding money. So we already know what they're requesting to build for next year, if it gets approved. And then they will map that
Well,
out for the next 4 years.
I guess my idea about this is pretty simple. I think our committee should send someone to these meetings, town gown meetings, to establish a presence, to put our, you know, to show up and show an interest and listen and learn and maybe get engaged in the conversation in some meaningful way or not, but learn, you know, one more channel of information that we.
Well, why don't we
attempt to
talk,
open.
I've said before, why don't we, is it the mayor why don't we sit down and talk with the mayor about what the town hopes to communicate and accomplish at those meetings? Because we've already asked the council to talk with the university about potential land that they might
Yeah,
have.
we
that
haven't
could
heard
be
anything
usable.
back.
So
And I don't know whether that's being brought forward
Well, and
by
I'm,
the town.
well, I don't
have an
either.
idea about, we set the agenda, right? There's an agenda that gets met, and housing is such a big thing right now. I mean, everyone is talking about housing. If you watch the town council's goal setting session, housing dominated it, all sorts of housing. So maybe that's a place where we need just, it's not just affordable housing, but we're gonna have a lot more housing in this town. And we gotta figure out a lot of different ways of handling it. And maybe it's me working with Ryan and the mayor and Margaret, who helps to say, can we talk about housing and leaving it a little bit broad?
Open.
It just seemed to
If
me it
you're-
wouldn't hurt.
I
if
think
we-
it's housing and
knew-
land.
got
so
our
it's
own
really not
information
housing.
and
You
evaluate.
gotta go to the meeting.
Thank you. I was just
I
gonna say that.
I
you wanna
wouldn't mind going to a meeting once in a while, just to sit there and listen and maybe
I mean,
figure
you're-
something out.
Anyone's welcome to go to
Yeah,
the
no,
meeting,
right.
but they keep it, it's pretty tight
Yeah.
meeting, because it's like 1 hour, and so they have an opportunity for public comment.
Yeah, well, an opportunity to
shy.
listen. No, I'm not shy, but I also know if you keep going to the meetings, eventually they start to recognize that you maybe have an ongoing interest and it has a kind of an informal value that,
Yeah.
you know, communication value where someone on their way out to the parking lot says, hey, you know, this kind of stuff happens.
It's all online, so
Yeah.
there's none of that.
Well, yeah, of course not. None of that goes on. No, no information flowing through here except through the internet. Yeah, well, you know, like I said, I know what the realities are. It never, doesn't hurt to
There's
show
no-
up. Doesn't hurt to show
Oh,
up.
there's soon. Oh, God.
And when is the next meeting? They don't even have an agenda.
Because it's,
The agenda is always the same. usually.
Report
I'll say
results.
They had a January
They have
9 meeting
five-
that they canceled.
they have a that is probably March, right before.
I just looked on the agenda center.
Yeah, we don't post
Okay.
the agenda till 48 hours before.
Okay, well, the January 9 meeting was canceled. Unless they had 2 meetings.
There's a list of those meetings, Paul. that
Yeah, I know, I was looking at it. Meeting will be rescheduled.
I don't hear any real specific action, so I'm. gonna
No, well,
take this
other
off
than
our
to-
Agenda
okay.
forever.
Other than to tell me to go to the meeting.
And I'm not even gonna look for a motion.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry, jawbone this one forever.
All in favor of Paul attending all the meetings?
Yeah, that's all.
I second.
Third.
All right, thanks.
Besides my citizen,
Okay.
right as a citizen.
That's
Good
right.
night.
Have you ever looked at this site?
Let's move
No,
on.
but why don't you
to
send
5B.
send me
This
the
is
link. I'll be
important.
happy to look at it.
Cause
So,
this is what I
B.
think you
Can I-
want.
Yes,
Good.
please.
Yeah.
so I've just, this 5B, the hiring a consultant to assist the Affordable Housing Committee. I struggle with this because I don't know what the real ask is, and so, that's why I've been having these conversations with Larry Cluche and Emily Gordon from Stanford. And who else did I talk with? I talked with Rebecca Field just to kind of see what's happening. I think we don't need staff, like, for example, I think we need to get the ordinance going. And I think somehow you have to figure out, or with me, how we're gonna just. It's really gonna be, I think we should really do a lot of what Stanford's doing. And if you look at their affordable housing webpage, they have not done a request for proposals, but they accept applications on a rolling basis. So I think we want to make it, I think folks are going to be supportive of this housing authority project. I don't know, they have land, they're ready to go. It seems like this would be a great opportunity to use some trust funds. They may be
So,
considering
yeah, we're
a
gonna
percentage of
do
age
that.
restricted housing.
Oh, my God. it's all time.
So we're gonna do that next meeting.
Right, so you're gonna,
But-
but what you're gonna have to do, and I'm not quite sure how to, you have to make it fair, right? You can't just be handing out money, like, it has to be, and you've developed those criteria. But somehow, like Stanford has, they just have a website and they have 3
Well, they
million.
had an application, because we used.
Yeah,
We
yep,
use
they have
our
an application.
application.
Yep.
Yes, we use
Standard
their
bid
application.
package documents, they have those.
Like a-
They have quite an extensive collection of stuff here.
They have,
We use their application to write up that
Yeah,
application. It's
yeah.
Pretty much copied it.
it's their below market.
Can I ask a
Below
question?
market program, whatever.
Do we still need a consultant?
Well, not yet.
Not yet,
I-
okay.
We're not there yet.
I don't think you're
We're
there
not
yet. So I think TBD. But I did,
Okay, so we wait on the consultant.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile,
Well, could Emily,
if you
maybe
have
come in on-
names,
could, well, I didn't know how many calls you wanted me to make. I mean, there's some now contacts I got. So for example, I looked on the CHFA website, they didn't have a list of consultants, they had a list of certified HUD housing counselors. This is what my friend who works in housing nationally told me, but she said CHFA she thought had a list of certified housing consultants.
Yeah.
And
I
then-
just don't know what.
and then
we
she
have
gave me
them
another
do.
name that it might be better for me to contact. Of a woman who's working in housing development, was on the CHFA board. And so who might be helpful in just giving us it might be helpful for me to do it since I'm not official, but just to give us some guidance on, how we could use a consultant and what we're talking about doing.
I think fact finding is always good.
so if you are fact finding and have good facts, send them to Dorothy. Coalesce, is that all right, Dorothy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I sent you that
No, that's fine.
article, the two of you.
Did you copy
I forgot
everybody?
Dorothy. No, I just sent it to the two of you. I forgot. I was like, oh,
It's okay.
I sent 5 names to Dorothy for potential
Okay.
consultants.
so should I send that thing for
You
the
had
next?
housing consultants? Where'd you find them?
From the woman that got us Frank. A lot of Kara Capone, I guess, forget where she works. It's
You mean that,
Wait,
what the
whole thing.
Eastern Connecticut Community Foundation started that housing projects going on in southeastern Connecticut? No, what? The
Wait,
one
what?
that you and Paul started going to their meetings and I went with you.
No, that's
Okay.
Oh, that was
Geo.
that,
But
yeah.
she wrote
Yeah.
back, Beth wrote back to me today and said she was still working on it. So. So what's our action here? I'm a little confused. We're waiting on the consultant, right? But
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that maybe we have Emily on a Zoom, if she would be willing to do it. so that she could kind of walk us through their process.
That's what.
This is the best, okay, I'll send this website to you. It's at their, they
Oh,
have an
very good.
affordable
Yeah.
housing trust fund website.
That was,
Who's that?
just.
This is
what do you
Stanford
call it?
and I'll send it to
Serendipitous.
Yeah,
That I connected.
yeah, that's great.
So we don't. If you have ideas for consultants, send them to Dorothy, but it's not super urgent. And
Do we want to have Emily from Stanford come and just walk us through their process of how they, give out funds and?
If she's willing, I can, that would be something to put on maybe
That
a
would be
later on
helpful,
agenda.
so-
Yeah, I think so.
so she could zoom in, right?
Right, right.
Make it easy for her. You might also, is that too much to put on the March 7th with the housing authority?
Probably,
Yeah.
yes.
So that would
She
be,
had to be the main
April?
attraction to that April meeting. yeah.
who's in touch with Emily? I don't know Emily. Do you want me to invite her or?
I can invite her,
Okay.
for which,
So.
April.
You know,
April?
it might also help to give her a time, a fixed time
Yeah,
to talk,
right,
rather than just have her like,
yeah.
flounder around for too
So
long.
copy me and then I can interact with her.
sure, I'd like to be,
No, just that way it's not.
I think I'd like to be involved just because
No, that's fine.
I need to learn too. It's just a matter of
Uh,
getting me
I
to,
just know how busy you are.
yeah, well, hopefully.
Hey, every day is Saturday. Great,
It is great.
sorry.
Do you sleep in and?
Don't brag.
I know.
No bragging.
As I'm already like fall asleep in my
It's like,
chair.
Not always
Not
Saturday.
always Saturday. There is a Monday once in a while.
Yeah, right.
What year is it? I don't know.
Good, so that's good. So you'll reach out to Emily and try to get her here
You're
for
retired too?
April.
Well, in theory.
So we're the
I have
only
two-
two that
I
are
only have
not
two jobs
retired
now.
here.
I have my business.
And Dorothy,
business,
yeah.
plus
I have my
work half
book
time for-
business.
And
So
Dorothy.
you're not retired.
I'm not
You're
retired.
not-
I'm self-employed.
I can't imagine you ever retiring, Paul.
Um,
I think you have to run around the house.
well,
Is there anything else on this subject?
don't think
So
so.
we still have about 15 minutes.
We did that.
Anything else? I think we have a couple deliverables. It's always good. Staff reports, anything? Oh, so we're meeting with Mansfield Housing Authority. Do you want to talk about that or? You talked about
just-
it a bit.
As you know, Eagleville Green is well on its way to being built. They have a little bit of white space on their board, after really busy 10 years. And now they're thinking about phase 2. And they're thinking about coming in with another project and they want to come to you, at your next meeting and kind of give you, I told them, that this is a way to generate some excitement in the community about this project, to, what their overall high level vision is. They are thinking about going to the development engagement, through the applying for that development
they
engagement
are.
process,
Okay.
yes. It's called the development engagement process.
Department of
that-
Housing.
The Department of Housing, Michael you guys looked at that the other, it's money for them to kind of do a lot of
State-
pre-development.
State Department of Housing, yeah,
So-
so I was at the Connecticut Affordable Housing Conference, Mike Santero spoke and he said,
Okay.
look at the DEP because they got money to spend.
Yeah,
And he said, send us your application. So I was
All right.
hoping that Mansfield is in the game.
I'm sending you all the Stanford, Connecticut Affordable Housing Trust Fund website, and the reason I like it is because it's really simple and really, I found, I was like, oh, wow, okay. And it's clickable things with their application, and it would be great to
Yeah.
have something.
Should
No.
we send out our application again?
Yeah, could you send, I was
Draft
looking,
application?
would you send that to me and I will,
Our application,
Oh, you
Yeah,
don't
and-
have it?
yeah, somebody
have it.
send you ours
I have it, I
and
have to pay.
Oh, all
Stanford's.
right.
It's in your, it's in my file. I was looking, I have took 5 minutes to look in it. It automatically came up.
Do you need ours?
If you have it handy, that will make it on the top of my email.
And. Application.
Yeah, so see, if you're gonna, you have it,
Yeah, I don't have it here. but
okay,
I have it
we'll do the
somewhere.
CC, so I make sure that it's the same as mine. So it's under the iterations.
Yeah, I want to make sure I have the most current iteration of it. yeah.
Good, so any other
Excuse me, it
things?
might even be in our minutes. that we
It is,
adopted.
it's in your
It's
packet.
in
somewhere.
our, we adopted
The
it.
date of the next meeting. Is
It's,
it
March
March
7th.
7th.
Yep.
Dorothy, anything from you on staff stuff? Jennifer, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Good, so,
So could I just ask,
they're pursuing that, and then they're gonna be here next meeting, and. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
just so is planning and zoning, they're looking at the fee and lieu?
Yeah, so that's part of the whole high density housing.
Right.
So yes, they are, I think, if the high density housing workshop, that was raised a number of times, I think there is basically unanimous agreement that that fee and lieu is way too low. And so as they develop the regs, they'll be looking to, and, make it so that it makes sense. And I know they're very appreciative of you.
It's
Great.
maybe a model town for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. I know.
So, only one item in communications, but it's a good one because it's a tax abatement article. So
Well,
I
yeah.
encourage you all to read
Right.
that. Thank you, Sheila. We talked about future meetings already, so March is going to be with the Housing Authority and other small business. You're communicating with Rebecca,
Yes, to have her here.
so it'd be nice to know, as Paul said, how much time we should allot.
Yeah.
Are you thinking like an hour?
What would you guys think? I mean, I think they could probably present their plan in less than an
Less than
hour and then,
discussion.
I hope,
and then a lot of, I mean, I would think they
Lot of
present the
discussion.
plan pretty quickly and then you guys ask questions.
Right.
I hope they have it all written out, because I won't be here and I really.
Yeah, well, there'll be a recording of it, but if they have some kind of written.
I told them to
Wherever
kind of
there
bring
is,
like
I
a
mean-
PowerPoint with
Oh,
like
nice.
some
Have you been there before?
high level plans on their,
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
their
they're
survey,
really
even
bad,
if they
so
just
we'll have
mark
to-
it out as to where
Right.
they're
Feedback.
thinking.
You haven't been there either?
We go.
Savannah. Savannah,
Oh,
Georgia.
Savannah.
You're practicing your
Okay.
drawl.
They've been
I
down
have-
there.
I have one thing. Gina sent, I feel embarrassed that I didn't see that article, but the article that Gina sent was basically about affordable housing. It came out in November from the Connecticut Insider. And basically it calls out Mansfield as being the top place where there was a dip in affordable housing.
Yeah,
So
remember that? We talked about it.
When you say a dip, you mean when our numbers went south
Yeah,
because of the
So-
one
10 to
decision
7.
Yeah.
that
Right.
tanked
yeah,
us?
That was in.
so,
Yeah. I don't need to
I
remember that.
do think that, I mean, we've known that, right? And we've known the reason, but we were called out for that. I think that we should try to do a little bit of press though, because there's a lot of really good things happening right now. And even though we did, you have to put that dip in context, right? Store Center was built during the Great Recession. We didn't think we would ever get it built. Affordable housing really wasn't at the forefront the way it is now, at least in the general public. And for a lot of people, I'm sure it always is, but so I think it was something that happened during that time, and we got Store Center built and we're here now, but we're doing a lot of really good things. And I think there's not very many people who have a trust fund like us or who will be developing. I mean, we're getting 125 affordable, 80% AMI, and then also the workforce.
The
housing
workforce
that we're
stuff,
doing.
you don't even count, right?
Right. So there is a lot going on here.
But we're making up for lost time. I mean, I think the current climate in Mansfield is phenomenal, frankly. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always phenomenal. So I still think we can make we can't excuse what was just totally ignored in the past. Let's just focus.
It
on
just
what we're
wasn't
doing
on
now.
on the radar when they were approving these
Who
things.
cares?
Right now, it's like on every
everyone's radar
newspaper,
now.
it's,
Yes.
it's just there, right?
Every
It's
day.
that
Nice to
topic.
see, the January 4th meeting. When the survey at the beginning and everyone did the poll. And they said,
Right.
what's your priorities? It was like affordable housing was
Yes,
really
yes.
high. I was hoping we
Yeah.
could
I think-
actually get that data. I looked at the summary. it's
Did
not
you see that
there.
report, by the way, that they sent around after
Thank you.
after that planning,
Thank you.
that session we participated in? There's a summary
The summary.
of the
but-
thing going around, but basically our notes from all the different little
right.
breakouts. It was a document somewhere.
Yeah,
Is that gonna be a video, that whole meeting, or?
it's, most of it is video. There's one that didn't take, but I
I would mind.
meant to
having some
put
of
that
those
into your
polls.
packet.
I'd
That-
like some of those
I saw it
polls.
somewhere, but I don't.
I saw it.
Do
I
we have it?
sent, I sent it to you,
Yes.
and it's in the PVC,
Yes.
yeah, I can.
Yeah, no,
All
we
right,
got it.
yeah, I saw it.
I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I was
Yeah, we
there.
said these things.
Yeah, I was like, did I
You
just?
sent us that, but I would like some of
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
Okay,
poll
good.
data.
Is that before?
Oh,
Yeah.
No,
Is
that was,
before my
I sent
time?
it,
it's not real polls,
that,
no,
to
it's
the
more
whole
like-
committee
Oh, we talking about this?
during the
and-
meeting, I think.
Yeah, but that's
If
like
you
so
didn't get it,
anecdotally,
I'll
you can't
just
possibly
email
rely
you.
on
You
it.
know what I
Right,
think the
'cause she
time.
wasn't-
That's the
Forward.
attendees of that meeting showed a very high.
Oh, yeah, but I think they made a point in the
There's
narrative.
a big
pretty much.
splash.
I don't know that the numbers would
you
tell
know,
you.
Ribbon cutting, whatever,
I mean, it-
whatever we do. I think that's what we do.
That, we need to bring the press that, the town is funding like almost $1.7 million of
Right,
gap funding
Right.
for Eagle Green. I mean, that's over and above what we have in our trust fund. So I think
Gee, if
people,
we just had someone to write all this great news up.
if we've, like, I think we've forgotten about
I just,
that,
a
you know.
caveat here, I'm not good at sugarcoating.
But shouldn't
I
the
mean-
town have someone to
I'm
do
just
that kind of thing?
Yes, so, but if.
Yeah, the town should be tooting its own horn.
Yeah.
We, and Margaret and I talked about that will be in the February newsletters going out like, as we speak, and then it'll be in April. So I just
Well, I
want to
mean, I
say,
know, but the newsletter, again, who does it reach?
right,
Yeah,
So I
it should be,
think,
there
So
should
the
be a
same
little
people
bit
the
more of a
public hearings
campaign,
reach.
like.
Like
on
invite all these
Facebook.
press people, yeah.
But, and there should be as soon as one building opens or we build that sidewalk, we get that sidewalk built wider and things like that, so.
I'm just the guy that
What?
can't make a motion.
I'm,
Oh, you want a
You wanna
motion
move
to
to adjourn?
close?
I move we adjourn.
second.
Second, third.
All in favor?
I was
We
going to
are
observe,
officially adjourned.
not officially
Now,
part
we
of the
can chat
meeting,
at our leisure.
that when the big referendum for the
Thank you,
elementary
everyone.
school
Thank you.
Right.
was gonna be on the ballot, a private